now we will learn about antonym, and maybe some of you have listened the meaning and example of antonym. So today we will learn specifically about characteristic, parts of antonym, and so on. Antonym. So before we learn about what is antonym, it will be better if we know the origin of antonyms. The word antonyms comes from ancient Greek, namely onoma, which means that meaning, and anti, which means against. So that can be interpreted literally as another name for another thing. Now, what is antonym? The definition of antonym is what? A word that has a opposite meaning of another word is included in the noun. It means that in the content of nouns, antonym refers to a word that has an opposite meaning when used in a noun. In Indonesian textbooks, it is often said that antonyms are opposite words, when it should be the opposite is not the words but the meaning of that word. So an antonym is a semantic relationship between two speech units that have opposite words or opposite meanings to each other. Okay, characteristic of antonyms. So characteristic of antonym there are five, and the first one is about antonym is absolute. An antonym with absolute nature means that the two speech units have meanings that are absolutely opposite to each other or can be denied. For example, life and death. What's the word death antonymous with the word life, alive? Because uh, between life and death, there is an absolute limit. Something that is alive is not yet dead, as well as something that dies, then it is certainly not alive anymore. The second one is about antonym is relative. This relative antonym can also be referred to as a gradation antonym. Or the gradation antonym is about the term of refers to the concept that antonyms can have degree or opposition or contrast between them. Uh, Instead of a strict binary opposition where two words are completely opposite, some antonyms exist on a continuum showing varying levels of contrast. Complementary antonyms is a part of antonym relative. These are antonyms that represent the most extreme or complete opposites. There is no middle ground between them. For example, the complementary antonyms are alive and dead, on and off, and true and false, and so on. Number two, relations antonyms. These antonyms represent opposing relationship between objects or concepts. The contrast between them can be seen as a continuum example of include above and below, before and after, or employer and employee. The degree of opposition can vary depending on the specific context. And the last one is gradable antonyms. That is a part of antonyms is relative. These antonyms represent as a scale or spectrum of contrasting qualities. They have intermediate forms or degrees between the extremes. Example of gradable antonyms are hot and cold, big and small, or fast between slow. The degree of opposition can vary depending between context the comparison being made by students. It is important to note that not all antonyms exhibit gradation. Uh, some antonyms have a clear-cut opposite with no intermediate forms, while others have more nuance or context depend degrees of contrast. Degradation of antonyms provides flexibility in expressing shades of meaning and allows for more precise and nuanced communication. This is because there is still a level of meaning in the speech unit. The level of meaning does not have a clear boundary between one another, therefore it is called relative. Example of it about antonym relative is rich and poor, uh, dead and alive. The terms rich and poor have relative meanings. The term criteria or standard of rich and poor so far do not have clear boundaries. Antonym is relational. The meaning of speech units that have a relational nature or relationship is complementary, that is, the presence of one word with another word will be a relationship. For example, selling and buying. The words sell and buy, even though they are contradictory in the meaning, but in the process of occurrence they apply the same. The process of selling can occur when there is a buying process. Therefore, buying and selling phrases are often encountered. It means that if there is no selling process, uh, and there will be no buying process, they are need each other. Next, antonym is hierarchical. This hierarchical antonyms expresses a series of levels or speech unit with another. Therefore, this antonym speech unit is the form of the name of the unit of measure, like weight, length, and content. The name of the unit of count and beheading. For example, mirror and thermometer. The word mirror has an antonym paired with the word thermometer because it is in a series of unit names that express length. Next, antonym is compound. In Indonesian, there are also units of speech that have more than one antonym pair called compound antonyms. This can happen because in the Indonesian language, there are words that have a position uh, meaning resistant to more than one word. The example of antonym compound is the word standing can have antonyms in the form of sitting, lying down, prone, squatting, and cross-legged. Another example is silent words that have antonyms with the words stall, wall, and move. 3 is about part of antonym. After we learn the characteristic about antonym, now we will go about parts of antonym. The first one is about binary antony and non-binary antony. Binary antony is the resistance of meaning between only two words that is absolute or can't be denied anymore. Non-binary antony are contradicting meanings with more than two words, meaning they have a cycle or repeat nature with their same pattern. Example: hot between warm, cool between cold. Next, graded antonym and ungraded antonym. A graded antonym is a type of stratified resistance of meaning. Tall between short and he is tall, is short. The example of graded antonym. Antonym is ungraded antonym. Meanwhile, ungraded antonym is ungraded or resistance. The word grandmother and grandfather between father and mother are not graded antonyms because they do not have relative characteristics. For example, between married and single, like is married, she is single. There is no intermediate state between these two statements. Next, orthogonal antonym and antipodal antonym. Orthogonal antonyms are opposite means whose oppositions are not diametrical. It's like KBBA diametral means like diameter split into sides. For example, the word north has antonyms that are orthogonal to all cardinal directions except south. Antipodal antonyms. Antonyms are means whose appositions are diametrical. Therefore, when analyzed using the same example as before, the word not has an antonym with so, likewise with not has, which has antonym with surface. Plus, directional antonyms and relational antonyms. Directional antonyms are apposition of meaning whose apposition is determined by represents of motion away from approaching a place. For example, up and down between uh, the example is about the ball went up into the sky. She climbed down the stairs. Between in and out, the example was please come in the room. He went out of the house. Relational antonyms are the opposite meaning of directional antonyms. For example, between above and below, the book is above the shelf, the pencil is below the desk. Okay, that is the material about antonyms. So there are five characteristics and uh, four parts of antonyms. So you can keep learning from others, media like Google and so on. Okay, thank you.